Your friends are back. Season 2, episode 35, This One Time in Real Estate. We very, very rarely talk about the topic in advance to just hopping on. However, Sarah said, I'm trying to think of the word. And her word was kind of, she was trying to think about like getting in front of it,
right.
Preemptive, whatever that is. But she actually thought it was premeditated. And premeditated, that's not what this is. So we're going to strike X out.
Different podcast.
That there's like one of those like murder mystery.
True crime.
Oh, true crime. You like those?
I do.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
We're going to digress for like 1 sec. What do you like? You know, and by the way, those are really, really popular. But they freak me out. These like serial killers. What is the name? True crimes? So what is it?
Well, there's really dark ones, which those aren't my thing typically. But then there's the ones that are like a mystery or, but a lot of them, I like them when they're in documentary form, like on Netflix. But then typically a lot of the time they've come from a true crime podcast, and then they make a documentary out of it. So then I'll go listen to it. Like the Murdaugh. Do you know about that?
They're crazy.
That's a true crime.
Crazy.
That one
Let me ask you a question. Who are you more intrigued by? There's about 3 different things.
Okay.
The murder.
Okay.
The killer.
Proposed because they're innocent until.
Oh yeah. These people are about as innocent. But anyway, I get it. Innocent until proven guilty. So are you more intrigued by the character development of that quote, innocent before guilty? Are you more intrigued by the buildup of the family and it's like sad and all that? Or the actual investigation, how they either track down and or what intrigues you out of those 3 things?
Storyline investigation all the way.
Isn't it amazing how, and we segue because we always say like, you may get away with it and not get away with it like in a bad way, like cheat or anything.
Right.
But you may like get lucky on like a missed inspection or something. But it's always going to come back. It's like it may not come back for a month, a year, 10 years, but it always comes back. That's why you do everything right. Because if you shortchange, if you do. But isn't it amazing for the most part that most every of your they're not your friends.
No, they're not.
These crazy people. But isn't it amazing that like today they're like arresting people that have been that have been on the run for 30 years, but they actually found them.
Oh yeah.
Like, most criminals are actually caught at some point.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like breadcrumbs, except that we're talking about real estate when we talk about breadcrumbs usually, but they're leaving them and they don't necessarily always realize, man, check that video on that cell phone, like you're going to get found out, you know? And now that's the craziest thing is that there's video everywhere. So, I mean, but it's very interesting.
The murder, it's like that's a crazy story. Now, I have never watched like start to finish about them, but I've watched tidbits of them.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The other thing is when I stay home on a Friday night, and if you turn on TV, there's like Dateline. I don't know, is it Dateline or like 48 Hours?
Yeah, that is Dateline, I'm pretty sure.
Is it?
I think.
There's like 3 of those shows on. And by the way, once I turn them on,
can't turn it off.
They're pretty addicting. They're pretty compelling, except I feel kind of like weird watching it.
I know.
But you shouldn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you a bad person.
No, it's fine. You know what was a good one is the Dear John. That's kind of what like started it, which was also a true story and was a podcast that was like just famous because he was just a complete con artist, but it was fascinating. So anyway.
I don't know him.
You've got, I'll send it to you. It's really good.
Actually, now that you mention it,
yeah.
When you said he's a con artist, you know what show I enjoy or I listen to it to? Have you ever heard American Greed?
I feel like I have.
American Greed's the same idea, except a lot of them are like Ponzi schemes where they defraud, and you're like, what? But that Leonardo DiCaprio movie.
Oh yeah.
Was it Catch Me If You Can?
Where he's the pilot.
I mean, it was crazy.
So good.
It was
True
crazy.
story?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
Well, Wolf of Wall Street's also, he just does a lot of weird, crazy stories, but it's just also a true story, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
So that's interesting. So we really, really digress. But hey, maybe we can stick with it. You
Yeah, so
mentioned
not
bread.
preemptive.
No, you mentioned breadcrumbs.
Yes, right.
Well, what the heck does that refresh the listeners? Because these the police and the investigators are looking for breadcrumbs, right?
Yeah.
What is breadcrumbs in our business? And I know we had that one podcast,
Yeah.
but you know what? I feel like this was a better intro to breadcrumbs than our last.
We hooked them now.
Yeah, we're testing.
Yeah, totally.
We're just messing around, seeing if, hey, let's talk about murders,
Yeah.
and then going to breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I like that.
So let's see, listeners, if we get more action on
Yeah,
this one.
this is an exciting topic. This is actually one of my favorite things to talk about because we also say look for clues, so it's the same idea. So basically and this is kind of specifically when you have a CRM, hopefully you're working out of a CRM if you're an agent, that helps to organize your database of potential clients and past clients and contacts and all that. Your lead in the CRM is usually doing things, and they probably have they could have an email that speaks to something that may be important. Like maybe it says at WUSTL, which just happens to be Washington University STL, which means maybe they're in the medical field. Or it says, I love dogs, 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, maybe they like dogs. That's always good to know. If they're clicking on certain homes and they're all pretty consistently priced, well, that would probably mean that maybe they're prioritizing that price point. If they're clicking on homes in certain zip codes, probably means they're looking in those zip codes. So we always just say look for clues or look for the breadcrumbs, because a lot of the time they're telling you and showing you what they want, and you just have to look at it in order to see it. And then you can ask questions around it, and you'll have a way higher chance of converting that lead by looking at the breadcrumbs or following them.
And so you're looking, and as leaders, though, we're looking for different breadcrumbs versus an agent. So an agent should be looking for breadcrumbs. And by the way, equally, if somebody puts in dot, like on a keyboard, next to O is P. So if they do .cpm, they probably just mistyped it instead of the fact it's a rejected email and they purposely did it. No, people, they call it fat finger.
Yes, absolutely.
So all these clues agents should be using. But equally, leaders, you and I, matter of fact, about an hour ago, we saw some clues, we saw some breadcrumbs. We're looking in our CRM. And the first lead that came up was interesting because no views, no property searches, and really no activity. So it told me one of two things. They're actually a disinterested person, which is somewhat negative, that we put them in the CRM. We met them at an open house. It's probably at least have some interest in real estate. So the negative would be, they don't like us. They don't have any interest. The curious is, I wonder if they have a good email. Look like a good email. But the more curious was, I bet you based on these breadcrumbs, clues, we probably didn't set them up on a search. So what'd Sarah do? Clicked on the button, no search set up. Here's the clue. We didn't know that one wasn't set up, but we see enough in a CRM, we understand. And so if you're an agent, you should be looking at your CRM, looking at the activity, look at the clues, but also look at the clues that aren't happening.
Oh, so true.
Are they interested? Are they not interested? Should we follow up that they have a valid email, they have a valid search set up? Sarah, Mark Gelman over at the Gelman team, I noticed that you haven't searched. Did you receive that? See, I could ask, well, how come you're not searching?
Right.
Negative. I wanted to check in and make sure that you received the search intro. Right? Because I want to follow up. I want to make sure. Because one of the number one ways to engage a prospective buyer is to get them searching.
Right.
And watch their clues from behind the curtain.
Totally.
and then you can add value. And so exactly, we just were looking at clues today. Any other clues you can recommend?
Oh. Well, I think it's interesting because we organize our leads in an ABC format. So A, they're buying within 0 to 30 days. They're ready, willing, and able. They're pre-approved, or they have their proof of funds. You're actively showing them properties. B, they're 30 to 60-ish days. So there's something that's keeping them from being an A. But if they, within a short amount of time, they're going to become one. And then C is like 60 plus, but it's typically going to be a little bit longer term. However, as I was pointing out today, I love C's because you want to carry enough, knowing that you want to nurture those leads and that you need more because they're not all going to obviously become B's or A's overnight. So you want to make sure you're carrying enough. But the best thing ever is when a C becomes an A. And that happens actually quite a lot because for whatever reason, they're not fully motivated, but they've identified a need. They know they're going to move eventually. And you need to understand what is that motivation that's going to make them decide to take that leap. But then, you can typically see through the clues, have their patterns picked up. And so like for this one lead today, we were talking through, the agent was saying, they're not that motivated. They just had a baby, and I'm like, oh, okay, baby, and she's like, yeah, well, I talked to them in like May and they were still kind of like, nah, interest rates need to go down. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm looking and I'm like, ooh. And so I could see that they had clicked on like 7 houses. And then when you hover, you can see within the last like 5 days. And I'm like, oh, it looks like their motivation may be increasing. Obviously, I don't know. I'm just reviewing what I'm seeing. And I was like, what, is it true their house is 741 square feet? And she's like, well, they have an attic that's technically, and I'm like, okay, well, how many kids do they have? And she's like, 3. And I'm like, Kathy, sorry, Kathy, I just called you out. I'm like, call these people. Spoiler alert. I'm like, call these people today. Like, they are probably moving. And it's just interesting. And sometimes that's why it's so valuable to have another set of eyes, because I know, because first of all, I've been in that situation where you're like busting at the seams, but also I can just see the patterns, and they've identified they're moving. They know they want to move. And then sometimes all it takes is that little shift, and you're like, now this is now I'm an A. It's the best.
And sometimes you're too close to
Correct.
it. You're too close into it.
Yeah.
If you can step away, sometimes it's hard though. Step a little bit higher, broad overview of your business. But the pre-child versus the post-child, the stuff, the crowded quarters, how your other, in that case, there's 2 children, other, how are they reacting? Do they need their space? Can they all live together, coexist? I just was talking to one of our agents today who had just had a child, and they're busting at the seams with one, not realizing that they were going to. So had you spoken to him pre-baby, no, we'll have plenty of time because the baby's going to be in a bassinet in our room and then a crib. It's not going to move. It doesn't need space. It may not need space, but what needs space?
We do. The mom and dad.
All that crap that comes along. If you've ever had a baby shower, there's a bunch of stuff that can fill up a 700 square foot house quickly.
For sure.
So the point is that, again, get into curiosity. They're searching, they're favoriting, they're on, they're looking around. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with checking in to say hello, see how you're doing. How is the house feeling with those 3 kids? I'm sure it's crowded. How you doing?
Oh my gosh. And the biggest mistake I think you can make, or one of them, is to say, oh, I don't want to bother them. And it's like, you're not bothering them. Why do you think that you're bothering them? You're checking in, first of all, and then you're also being a resource. Like, you can add value if they need you. And if not, then you're just checking in and seeing how they're doing. But you're never bothering them. Take that out of your head.
The other thing is, Gelman team just got in onesies that said a realtor in training. You know what I'm doing? I'm driving over there, dropping one off, nothing self-serving. They may talk.
Love it.
But here's the thing, I'm going to add value. I'm going to give to them. It just makes it easy. Again, murders to breadcrumbs. That's a wrap. It was fun. Let's do it.